So, Elle, do you
Mhm.
know what day today is?
By the look on your face, it's a significant day.
It is, and to our listeners, of course, Ali knows what day
Hmm.
today is because we
Yeah,
are really excited
yeah.
about celebrating today, aren't we?
We are. Do you know, a couple of years ago, I had no idea. When you said to me, Ali, do you want to start a podcast with me? And I said yes. I had no idea what that meant. And so, what are we celebrating today?
So today is not only our 100th podcast episode
Yeah.
together,
Wow.
it is also our second year
Hmm.
walking side by side, doing this together. Yes, we've missed a few weeks, but yeah, we're getting to celebrate 2 years and 100 episodes.
100.
Yes,
100 episodes.
yeah.
Wow.
And I just love what you just shared now about, at the beginning of this journey, not really knowing what was ahead of us. I don't think either of us knew what was ahead of
No, we
us.
had no idea.
No, and so that I think in itself is a good topic to talk about today as we celebrate our 100th
Mm,
episode.
mm, mm.
And I think it's this whole notion of, okay, so is it important to always have the vision clear and the goal and the dream up there and clear? Um, or is it sometimes okay to just get started with things even when the vision is not clear? And it's a question I've often grappled with because in the coaching space, we get taught how important it is. And it's
Mm.
even biblical. It's important.
Hmm.
It says, I can't remember where it is in the Bible, but it does say, have the vision clear so that, when you run with it, you'll be able to go.
Mm.
And there is definitely power and strength in having a clear vision and knowing where you're going.
Yeah,
And yet,
yeah.
the reality often in certain seasons is that we don't always have the clarity,
Mm-mm.
and it would be so easy to just stay stuck
Yeah,
without a clear vision.
yeah. If I only took steps because I knew where I was going, I don't think I would have done a whole lot with my life, right? Because
Yeah.
yes, I've got a general idea, but I think over the years, what I've learned is more about who I want to be rather than necessarily exactly where I'm going. And
Yeah.
so that means for me, if I kind of know how I want to show up each day, I can take action without sometimes, and it's not easy. So for me, when there's been a big goal, it's much easier to keep showing up.
Yeah.
It's hard too though, because sometimes when you see a goal, you think, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get there. That's an audacious goal kind of thing. And so sometimes that can cause you to feel a bit stuck as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we've definitely been in this, I don't know what you'd call it, a bit of a tension since the beginning of the whole podcast thing, because we haven't really known what we're doing. We felt called to show up and have a conversation each week. And
Yeah.
so we've
Yeah.
we've done that. Do we know what that's going to look like for the next 100 episodes or 2 years? Absolutely not. I've got no clue. But until otherwise. Yay.
Yeah. And I just love what you shared about knowing who you want to be. And I think there is so much gold in that because I think having clarity in that space is so
Mm,
important
mm,
because I think um, knowing who you want to be speaks right into identity. And again, the whole topic of around identity used to be such an enigma for me because I used to get so tied up and almost paralyzed in it because I just kept thinking, I don't know who I am really. Like, who am I? Especially when I walked away from medicine and I didn't realize how much of my identity was
yeah.
wrapped up in career. And I think it is that whole thing around who you're being versus what you're doing. And
Yeah.
so I love your distinction in that even though you might not be clear in your doing or the path of the doing
Mm,
going forward, having clarity still around the being
Yeah.
is so important. And I think, you and I were talking just before we started recording today, and we were sharing how who we want to be in the space is
Mm.
something we've probably got more clarity around than what we're actually doing in this space.
Agreed.
You know? Yeah. Because I think we want to encourage and inspire, and we want to be real. We want to also bring people along the journey of, what we always share, going where the life is.
Yeah.
And so that's all the being stuff. And I
Mm.
think we can both agree that each time, each week we've shown up over that last 100 episodes, like that's not changed.
No, agreed. That's not changed ever. And in fact, that's what's helped us to keep showing up.
Yeah.
That's what's caused us. And so I guess as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I imagine that there's people who are tuning in today who feel a little uncertain about necessarily where they're
Yeah.
going and what they're doing. Um, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's really okay. Um, And I think the key is to not allow that to cause us to not take action. If there's one thing that I've really learned over the years, it's that by simply not taking action because you don't know,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I wouldn't have done anything. And so I just, 100 episodes. Gosh, I'm proud of us.
Uh, yeah, and I don't think we ever. I think in this case, had we started out saying, "Okay, let's start a podcast and let's see if we could get to 100 episodes," I
Hmm.
think reflecting back on where I was at that time, that would have just heaped a whole lot of pressure,
Mm.
and potentially got my head all spinning in a place that wouldn't have been that helpful.
Yeah, true.
And yet, I mean, you've done an ultra marathon. I've done one full marathon before, and in that space, having the end goal in mind was so vital because that
Mm.
um, kind of guided how you set up and structured your whole training program, and
Mm-hmm.
when you
Mm-hmm.
did what, and when you pushed in for more, and when you, stood back and did less,
Yeah.
and that was critical in that space.
Mm.
So I think, if you're listening to this, I think a big takeaway is that not one size fits all.
No.
And I think making a blanket statement of, oh, you always need to have a clear end goal versus, oh, no, you never need a clear end goal. I mean, neither of those are true.
Very helpful. No. And I also pausing, even if you don't have it as a goal to get to 100 episodes, pausing and celebrating the milestones along the way. I
Yeah.
really, and we've talked about this time, in the past and, celebrating our small wins. But by doing that, like, I've just realized what we've done. Like if we just blew this over and kept doing it and kept going along and yeah, it's episode 100, blah, blah, blah. We wouldn't be taking a moment and patting ourselves on the back and going, wow, we didn't set out, we didn't know what we set out for, but yet here we are. And it's a great win. It's worth celebrating. And I was speaking with somebody today, actually, and we were with a client today, and that they were kind of realizing all they are noticing are the things, the marks that they've missed, not the
Yeah.
marks that they've actually attained and gotten well at. I saw she's an artist, and this beautiful piece she'd created. And I said, gee, that's a beautiful piece. And she goes, oh, all I notice is where I went wrong, like all the
Oh,
bits,
yeah.
all of my mistakes. I was like, this is interesting. I wonder if this is reflective in life, in our everyday, and
Yeah.
how easy it is for us to go, oh yeah, but we missed those couple of weeks, and it's easier to notice. For some reason, we notice easily the places that we go wrong, the places that we
Yeah.
fall short, but celebrate the wins, people.
And you're so right. And isn't it interesting that we do that? And I'm just sitting here thinking, I wonder what it is that, that that has us looking at what
Mm,
we haven't done versus what we have done. And
mm,
I think part of the story in my mind when I ask that question is, but by For me, this is just me, but
Mm.
by sometimes looking at the things that I haven't done yet, or done well, or done like I'd wanted to, kind of is fuel for me to go and do those things and to grow.
Hmm.
And you sort of think, oh, okay, well, that's quite interesting. So does it mean that if I take a moment to pause and celebrate the wins, that suddenly I'm not gonna want to grow anymore? And that's not
Yeah.
true either, you know?
No.
Um, and for me, if I'm honest, and this is all about being honest, sometimes I squirm a bit still at the
Mm.
celebrations of things. I kind of think,
Mm.
oh, is it really that worth celebrating?
Mm.
Which is so strange, isn't it?
It is, especially because I'm sitting here looking at you going, ah, yes, it is. Of course it's worth it. And I think that's something over the like with my current work that I've been doing at the moment, small wins, I see the power in stopping and celebrating the small wins.
Yeah,
And I don't for a moment, I used to skim over any of my wins, but if it's somebody else's wins, I'm like, what do you mean? Let's stop and celebrate. And I can see you here and you're like, I
yeah,
feel scared. I'm like, no. And I think it's easier for me to want to celebrate and talk about this 100th episode because I'm sharing it with you. And I'm sharing it
yeah.
with our listeners. It's been part of this bigger, it's not my win. It's our win. It's our Brave,
It's
Strong,
our
and
win. Yeah,
Fulfilled community win. We've got members and we get to share it with them. Um, yeah. And I just think it's important for us to have that conversation about not necessarily knowing where things are going,
yeah.
but enjoying the ride on the way.
Because often it is about the journey and the growth in the journey. And
Yeah, isn't it always really?
yes, we've stumbled along the way for sure. And we've had some episodes that, perhaps have been a bit better than other episodes. But you are right, and it is the journey. And I think one thing I've taken from this journey is the I mean, I get to see your smiley face often and regularly, which is just such a joy. And I think it's the reminder, you've helped me so beautifully remember to do what we always say, and it's like, go where the
Right.
life is.
Mm.
And through the last 2 years, it hasn't all been sunshine and roses for either of us, really. We've had our challenges, and we're not abnormal in that aspect. I think if
No.
you've been listening along the way and you've been part of our listening audience through the 2 years, you've probably also had just as many
Mm.
challenges along the way.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, you are right. I think there is definitely life and light and joy in stopping and
Mm.
pausing and celebrating the small wins, and
Hmm.
um, actually, it's quite funny because somebody else that I've been following for quite a long time in the podcast industry, I just happened to notice, like last week, it was their like 370 something episode or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
And you do that whole sort of like, oh man, we've got so far to go. And it's so easy to jump in what you were talking about last week, the comparison thing.
Hmm.
And yet, wherever you are in your journey and whatever you're celebrating as a win, it's not about comparing your wins to anybody else's wins. And it's not about also discounting how big or small, like if you feel your win is small, it's owning it and savoring it for what it is and what it
Yeah.
represents,
Yeah. Hmm. Well,
which
we're
is me
owning
like,
it.
convincing myself.
Oh, I think it's a really beautiful thing, and I'm really excited. And for our listeners, I'm excited to know what it's going to look like moving forward, and
Yeah.
what brave, strong, and fulfilled. What's part of our journey moving forward after our 100th
Yeah.
episode. Yeah, and I just think we're part of a greater community now, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this, I think to help us celebrate the 100th
Okay.
anniversary of our podcast, we would love to hear from you.
Mm.
Which was your favorite podcast in the
Okay.
100?
Mm.
If you had a conversation that specifically stood out for you, we'd love to hear. Um, Or if there isn't one specific thing that jumps out, we would also just love to hear what you love most about listening in
Yeah,
each week
yeah.
and the reason why you choose to listen each week.
Mm.
Because that would be such a gift to Ellie and I
It would
in
be.
this journey. Yeah.
That's a great idea. Well done, Catherine. I look forward to reading them and yeah, and we can even share some of the feedback that we get and
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Yeah. Please do. Please share with us what the journey's been like for you guys over the last couple of years. We'd love to hear it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And also then if you're in a season in your life where the goal is not clear, the road before you is not clear, we just want to encourage you today to take a step anyway. And
Yeah.
even if your first step, if you're sitting thinking, I don't even know what the first step is, um, a really good place to start is by asking yourself a really, really great question, which is this. It's who do I want to be
Mm.
in this season? And
Mm.
then it's okay, so if there's one little thing that I can do to be
B. Yeah.
who I want to be, what is that?
Yeah. What does
And then
that
we
look like?
encourage you to take that step. You never
Brilliant.
know where it might get you to.
You have no idea. You have no idea. That is a brilliant question. I'm going to write that down for the show notes so
Yeah,
we don't forget what that question was. That's brilliant. Thank you, Kath. And yeah, encouraging everybody today to live brave, strong, and fulfilled. And thank you for joining us on this incredible journey.
yeah. Thanks, Al. Love
All
you to
right.
bits.
Love you too. Have a great week, hey?
Cheers.